Alright, hello everyone, and this is my first year-end wrap-up video. Probably my only one, because I'm so good at making videos for this channel. In fact, how good am I? I'm wearing a hat because I haven't washed my hair since, like, before Christmas now, and yeah. So, anyway, we're going to talk about my top 10, well, actually, it's my top 20 albums of 2021. The first 10 of them are sort of more honorable mentions than anything else. Yeah, I'm not really going to go too much into depth about any of these albums, really, but, like, assume these 10 are sort of like maybe I like one or two songs, maybe the rest of the album is kind of bad, or maybe I just haven't listened to it enough. That kind of thing. So I'm just gonna do them in no particular order for the honorable mentions. The first one on my list is Grace Hayhurst, Existence is Temporary. This is actually an EP from a friend of mine over on Notes Reviews' own Discord, and she's put out sort of a short post-rock EP. There's some really good work on this. Check it out on Bandcamp. If you like, that sort of post-rock, post-metal kind of style, you'll find a lot to like here. Next is Devin Townsend with The Puzzle and Snuggles. This is two albums, but I'm sort of treating them like they're a single piece. I'm putting this in the honorable mentions instead of, like, I actually really don't like this one, because as much as this is not really good music, this isn't something you're gonna like, oh man, I just can't wait to put on The Puzzle. It's such a good album. There is some very compelling, interesting stuff on the record. It's not an album that you just, like, sit and listen to. It's just kind of more like a cool art project that your friend put out, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to support you anyway. Another EP, we have Thank You Scientist, Plague Accommodations. Again, a very short EP, not a whole lot going on here, but the song Soul Diver is probably one of my favorite late 2021 songs. Really great piece of music. The rest of the EP is really good too, but Soul Diver just stands out. That's such a good track. Next, we have The Voyage by ABBA. Now, who would have thought that we would be talking about a new ABBA album in 2021? Crazy, am I right? It's pretty classic ABBA. In fact, one of the tracks on this record features vocals from Annie Fried and Agnetha from back in the 70s with a re-recorded backing track, so that's pretty cool, I guess. After that, we have Between the Buried and Me, Colors 2. I wanted to get more into this one. I just never really found the chance to listen to it multiple times. And the few times I did listen to it multiple times, like, Between the Buried and Me takes a little while to sort of get into. I remember not really caring much for Parallax 2 when it first came out. Now it's one of my favorite albums of theirs, but it took years to get to that point. So history will see how Colors 2 does. Next is Gojira's Fortitude. Fortitude had some really creative stuff on it, some really interesting new ideas from the band that we've never really heard before, like traditional guitar solos and softer, more melodic arrangements, but there's still a lot of that classic Gojira chunk going on. So, it's a pretty competent album, but Gojira lately just hasn't really been my thing. Limp Bizkit still sucks. Yes, they do. And I'm here for it. The first couple tracks off that new album have that, like, classic break stuff, hot dog mentality to it, and, it's just that classic new rap metal sound. If only the rest of the album were good. Next up is Spiritbox, Eternal Blue, and this is one of those albums where the hype dramatically exceeded the results. Like, this was supposed to be like the future of metal, and what we got instead was just kind of more like some okay metalcore, some decent gent. The next two I almost kind of like actually put on my top 10 because the first band, Night Flight Orchestra with Aeromantic 2, the first album of that, which came out last year in 2020, is probably one of my favorite discoveries of 2021, hands down. Like, holy crap, Night Flight Orchestra, those guys are so amazing. Aeromantic 2 is pretty good too, but I don't think it quite lives up to Aeromantic 1. There's still some really good tracks on it, like White Jeans. Oh yeah, just some killer stuff. But yeah, you definitely want to check out the first of those albums before you check out this one. And then last, like I said, almost made it to my top 10 list, Styx, Crash of the Crown. Anyone who says like Styx doesn't have any credibility in the prog rock realm can absolutely shove it. This is a good prog rock record. You're going to hear moments that might make you think of like bands like the Flower Kings, Transatlantic, like anything Neal Morse does, basically. So, yeah, Crash of the Crown, really good album. I was so close to putting it in my top 10. I just haven't really internalized any of the songs yet. Even the title track, which is sort of like the big hit from the record. Yeah, I need to sit with it more. And, you know, coming off of their last album, The Mission, which was probably one of my favorite albums of the year that one came out, this is a good follow-up, maybe not on the same level. Alright, so now we are getting into my proper top 10, and we start off with The Quest by Yes. You know, it's a good late-era Yes album. We've got some really cool moments on it, like the Ice Bridge, which, you know, if you ignore the fact that it wasn't written by Jeff Downes after all, it has some of the most, like, energetic, playful kind of moments that we've heard from Yes in a good long while. There's a couple other sort of longer form numbers on here, a little bit more Steve Howe noodling here and there. That's exactly the kind of stuff I'd like to hear from Yes at this stage in the game. You know they're not at the stage where they're going to be making, like, Close to the Edges or Tales from Topographic Oceans style epics anymore. You know, that's just where they are now, and for what this is, it's a pretty good album. Number 9 on my list goes to Transatlantic's The Absolute Universe, and really this is kind of a weird one to rank because it's actually two albums. You have the sort of abridged version, and then you have like the full, I think it's called Forevermore or something like that, the full 2-disc version, which they have some differences between the songs, and you know some of them are sort of rearranged a little differently, but there's some really good material on both versions of the album. I say if you're not really accustomed to like big multi-disc epic numbers, probably start with the abridged version. But yeah, it's a good album. Transatlantic never really fails to make, you know, good hard-hitting prog rock, and this album's just another classic example of that. They go for a bit more of like a shorter kind of song arrangement than they usually do. Normally a Transatlantic album is something like 2 30-minute epics with like a couple shorter songs. They didn't do that this time. They really went for more just shorter pieces that they rearranged for either version of the album. But yeah, this is a pretty cool record. It deserves number 9 on my list. At number 8 on my list, we're doing another Neal Morse record. It's the Neal Morse band's Innocence and Danger. And again, this is just another one of those albums where there's some really good singles. Very recognizable as Neal Morse's writing style. He has a particular style and he is stuck with it. And that is for the better, you know? It's exactly what you would expect from a good Neal Morse album. And there's a couple of really good epics towards the end. It's just, all in all, it's a really good Neal Morse album. It's nothing less, nothing more than you'd ask for from him. At number 7, Andrew W.K., God is Partying. I'm scared, guys. Like, you think of Andrew WK, you think of like those energetic hard rock songs that are just party, 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 party. And even the last album, which, was probably like the least use of the word party he's ever had on an album. But it was still this very hopeful, uplifting, happy, self-help concept album. Who would have thought? And this one's like this dark, evil, angry, foreboding, metal record. And like even the cover is friggin' disturbing. This is a scary album, guys. But there's still some really cool material on this. It's sort of like the yin to You're Not Alone's yang, for sure. Such a dark and brooding record. And yet, it still parties. Number 6, Mastodon, Hushed and Grim. Mastodon has not been in my good books for quite some time. I think the last album of theirs that really, got me here was Crack the Sky, and that's saying something, because that was probably a decade ago maybe a little more than a decade ago at this point. And the albums they've put out since haven't been bad. They haven't caught my attention. The best thing they've done since then has probably been Cold Dark Place, which was the EP that came out after their last album, Emperor of Sand. Hush and Grim, though, has some really cool music on it. The only problem is there's too much of it. It's a 2-disc set of mostly just the same material over and over again. But it's one of those things where if you just take a few songs from it and listen to them piecemeal, wow, these are fantastic songs. Absolutely just gripping, intelligent music. You might not want to listen to the whole thing in one sitting, though. That's all I'm saying. Number 5, VOLA, Witness. Yeah, so prog metal in 2021 is no longer the, 25-minute long epics with 80 noodly guitar solos and lyrics about, I don't know, faith or something. Now we're kind of more into this era of brutally low tunings and polyrhythmic chugging and ambience galore. And on their last album, Applause from a Distant Crowd, VOLA really kind of went for the more ambient sound at the expense of a lot of the more metal elements. But I find that they've brought some of those metal elements back for Witness, and it's done them some real good. In fact, it makes some of the lighter songs that are lacking the metal elements come off all the better. 24 Light Years is probably my song of the year, hands down. I mean, that's like old school 80s synth era Rush, but modern. And it's just so good. The rap part in These Black Claws, it's okay. It took some getting used to. Otherwise, this album would probably rank a little higher. Number 4, Ascension Codes by Cynic. Cynic, no secret, one of my favorite metal bands of all time, and they are just absolutely killing it again with this album. We've lost both their bass player Sean Malone to suicide and Sean Reinert, cause of death unspecified, and because of that, the lineup on this album is basically just Paul Masvidal with drummer Matt Lynch, and they didn't even bother to bring in a bass player. All of the bass you hear on Ascension Codes is synthesizer, which is kind of an interesting tribute to Sean Malone, because Sean really brought the fretless bass into sort of the metal mindset. But with this album, there's a lot of really cool, weird, ambient sort of experiences, but they bring in the guitar when they absolutely need to, and there's some just gorgeous material on this record. The track list looks longer than it really is. A lot of those pieces are just sort of 30-second interludes that don't really have anything to do with, the flow of the album. And I could do without the aliens are real lyrics, Those kind of things always bug me a little bit, but overall, this is a really good release. I think I'd rank it maybe just a little bit higher than their last one. Just a little bit. Not much. At number 3, we have Aphelion by Leprous. Leprous maybe disappointed a little bit with their last album, Pitfalls. Felt like they were kind of going for a little bit more of the pop rock route, which, I mean, I'm sorry, I find when people say prog rockers are going pop, that's usually bullshit. I mean, really, they're just going for simpler song structures, but they're not turning into Christina Aguilera. They're still Leprous. And they've proven that with Aphelion, where, yeah, some of the song structures are maybe still a little simpler than they were early in their career. They're not going into wacky polyrhythmic time signatures all the time, but they're still putting out really good, heavy, hard-hitting material, emotionally driven, sort of big, massive choruses that we've come to know from them. And of particular interest was the song Castaway Angels, which they recorded live off the floor, and is just some of the most gorgeous material we've heard from Leprous ever. So, yeah, good job. Number 2, Steven Wilson, The Future Bites. A lot of people hated this album, and, I was just talking about, when prog rockers go pop, and this might actually be one of those few examples of a prog rocker actually going pop. But even then, it's this weird, wild version of pop that doesn't make any sense in the actual, you're not going to hear this on the same radio station that's playing Drake, If anything, it's more like King Crimson Discipline kind of pop, or, some weird underground electronic artist kind of pop. There's even an allusion to krautrock in tracks like Follower. Really, this is not a pop album. It's a very electronic-influenced experimental rock record. Even the album's big hit single, Personal Shopper, is a 10-minute long behemoth of an epic track, which features a vocal performance from Elton John, but it's not him singing or playing piano, it's him listing consumer items. I mean, it's so weird. It's not something you would expect to hear on pop radio, and yet, the audience is out there, it's Steven Wilson going pop. He's a pop artist now. He doesn't give a crap about prog or guitar or experimenting anymore. Nah, this is a fantastic record. Really interesting concept. Really interesting music. Genuinely interesting. I mean, you take the song Eminent Sleaze, that stick playing, because I'm sure that's a Chapman stick instead of a bass guitar. It's just so groovy and funky, and it reminds me so much of just Discipline era King Crimson. So yeah, there's still a lot of prog cred here. I still think Steven Wilson cares about us, guys. Alright, so it's probably no secret who my number 1 album of the year goes to in 2021. I mean, they're only my favorite band of all time. And I'm talking about Dream Theater with A View from the Top of the World. Is this Dream Theater's greatest album of all time? No. Did Dream Theater do anything innovative this time around? Did they bring prog metal forward? No. Is this even in their top 10 of albums for me? No. But it's Dream Theater doing what Dream Theater loves to do. And, you know, at this point in their career, we've kind of understood that they've settled into a groove. And the whole point of what they're doing now is to just stay in that groove and not let the quality slip. And they've come close to that a few times, both before and since dropping Mike Portnoy. This is an upward tick for them. Distance Over Time for me was a really decent album. A View from the Top of the World is slightly better. The epic length title track is a bit iffy. But I think that there's a few tracks on here that really show that the band, even at this stage in the game, still wants to try something new or just tap into that part of their psyche, their artistic development or whatever, that says, like, hey, we're just going to make good music. Doesn't have to be the most innovative thing we've ever done. Doesn't have to be the most experimental thing we've ever done. It just has to be good. And that's what they've done. And they've done an absolutely fantastic job of it. And this has been one of the few albums that's come out in 2021 where I really feel like I've enjoyed coming back to this record more. A lot of the albums on this list have been kind of like, you know, one listen and then I focus on the singles or, you know, the one or two tracks from them that I like. And then A View from the Top of the World has been like the one album that's come out this year where I've actually really kind of felt like listening to the whole album over and over again. So, you know, I think Dream Theater deserves the number one spot for that. And it's just, hey, they're my favorite band. I'm going to be biased towards them one way or the other. And what can I say? Dream Theater are always just a really good shout in my books. So anyway, there you go. That's my top 10 albums of 2021, along with 10 honorable mentions. If you have a different opinion than me, great. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people had much better opinions of different albums this year. There are a lot of albums that came out in 2021 that I just have not gotten around to. I would love to check every single record that's ever come out this year out, but, you know, I'm only one person. I have limited time. But, you know, these records have been records that have helped get me through yet another crappy year of pandemic stuff. So, you know, music. Gotta love it. Anyway, thank you for watching. This is a bit of a low effort top 10. Normally I do a little bit better at actually writing out stuff to say about each album, but this is just me getting my list out there. Anyway, take care.